Imagine this. You're standing on a stage, the applause thundering like a tidal wave. The lights blind you, but the warmth of validation burns through your chest. You've climbed the ladder, conquered the milestones, checked every box. People call you successful. They envy you. They whisper your name with respect, and yet, when you go home, the silence feels heavier than any trophy you've ever lifted. The applause fades into a ringing emptiness. You stare at the ceiling at 2 a.m., wondering why you feel more like a fugitive than a victor. What if your ambition, the thing you believed was pulling you toward greatness, wasn't carrying you forward at all? What if it was carrying you away from the questions you're afraid to face, the truths you'd rather bury, the life you've quietly abandoned? Søren Kierkegaard once wrote that the most common form of despair is not being who you are. But what if ambition isn't just a mask? It's the entire costume you've sewn to avoid meeting yourself. Could it be that the endless chase for more isn't proof of your strength, but evidence of a desperate escape? And if so, escape from what? The answer lies in a place most people never dare to look, a place far darker than failure. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Because sometimes the road to the top is the perfect hiding place. Ambition in its purest form is the fire that pulls humanity forward. It builds cities, cures diseases, writes symphonies, and pushes explorers to sail into uncharted waters. But in the shadows of that fire, another truth hides, one that Søren Kierkegaard, the Danish philosopher of the inner life, saw with unnerving clarity. He believed that most people live in a state of quiet despair, not because they fail, but because they succeed at the wrong things. You can spend decades scaling a mountain, only to realize you were climbing the wrong one. The psychological trap begins early. From childhood, you are fed stories about making something of yourself. Success becomes a social currency, an identity, a shield. Carl Jung would call it the persona, the mask you wear to navigate the world. And when life gets uncomfortable, when your deeper, more painful questions about meaning begin to stir, that mask can become thicker. Here lies the paradox. The harder you work towards certain ambitions, the further you can drift from yourself. Ambition becomes a socially acceptable addiction, rewarded by applause, promotions, and admiration. You can hide inside it for years without anyone suspecting you're running away. Nietzsche would warn against this. He railed against the herd morality that convinces you to measure your worth by the same yardsticks as everyone else. Ambition within the herd doesn't demand you ask, "Who am I?" It demands you ask, "Am I ahead of them?" And so life turns into a race with no finish line, except exhaustion. Schopenhauer, ever the pessimist, would push it further. The will to achieve is often just the will to escape suffering. We run toward achievement to distract ourselves from the unbearable truth that life is fleeting, chaotic, and indifferent to our dreams. And society makes it easy to avoid confronting that truth. Your calendar is full, your phone buzzes, your goals are written in neat bullet points. The busyness feels productive, but it's really anesthetic, a numbing agent for existential anxiety. From a psychological perspective, this works like any other coping mechanism. Just as some people bury themselves in substances or relationships, others bury themselves in ambition. The dopamine hits from progress, completing a project, reaching a milestone, become a loop. Each achievement is supposed to satisfy you, but instead it only raises the stakes. The next goal must be bigger, faster, louder. You tell yourself it's growth, but what if it's avoidance? What if the moments you are most driven are the moments you are most afraid? Afraid of sitting still long enough to notice the emptiness pressing against the walls of your mind. Kierkegaard saw that despair wasn't loud, it was quiet, respectable, dressed in success and hard work. And because ambition hides so well under the guise of virtue, very few ever see its shadow side. The hidden problem is not ambition itself. It's the silent bargain it strikes with you. I will keep you busy enough to never have to ask why you're doing any of this. The danger isn't that you'll fail. The danger is that you'll succeed, and in doing so, never notice the life you were supposed to live slipping quietly away. Because when ambition becomes your hiding place, you might just lose the one thing you were trying to protect: yourself. You think you're chasing a dream. In truth, the dream is chasing you, hunting you through boardrooms, deadlines, social gatherings, and sleepless nights. Ambition, when it turns into a form of escape, becomes the perfect predator. It rewards you for running away. At first, the cost is invisible. You still laugh at parties, still post pictures of your achievements, still convince yourself that life is full. But quietly, the erosion begins. You stop having conversations that aren't about progress. You stop doing things for their own sake. Even rest becomes strategic, a way to recharge for more work rather than a moment to simply exist. Neurologically, you've trained your brain to equate worth with forward motion. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter that fuels desire and reward, floods when you hit a milestone. But like any addictive loop, the high fades faster each time. The next goal must be higher, the next leap bigger. This is the hedonic treadmill. The more you run, the more you stay in place. And while you run, you fail to notice what's being stripped away. Relationships suffer, not in explosive fights, but in quiet neglect. Love becomes transactional, squeezed between meetings. You promise you'll make time later, but later never comes. Cognitively, ambition-driven escapism hijacks your identity. You start to believe that without your achievements, you are nothing. This is status bias in its purest form, valuing yourself only through the eyes of others. Every compliment reinforces the mask. Every moment without praise feels like suffocation. On a societal scale, the consequences are devastating. Cultures built on this form of ambition glorify burnout as virtue. The overworked, under-rested, emotionally hollow citizen becomes the standard. We applaud the relentless, never asking whether their relentlessness is driven by vision or by fear. Kierkegaard would call this despair disguised as achievement. It's not the loud, chaotic despair of breakdowns and crises. It's the slow, quiet despair of living a life that impresses everyone except you. And there's another, more dangerous consequence: the loss of self-trust. When ambition consumes you, you stop listening to the signals of your inner life. Fatigue is ignored. Discontent is reframed as hunger. Anxiety is called drive. You learn to override your own mind and body, mistaking the warning signs for motivation. The tragedy is that the world will reward you for this self-betrayal. You'll be promoted, celebrated, maybe even immortalized in books or headlines. No one will ask what it cost you. No one will see the nights you lie awake, staring into the ceiling's darkness, unable to name the thing you've lost. And here's the bitter truth. By the time the consequences become undeniable, when your health cracks, when your relationships dissolve, when you wake up with a success-shaped hole in your soul, it's not just a matter of changing course. The identity you've built around ambition doesn't want to die. It will whisper, just one more milestone, just one more achievement, then we'll stop. But you won't, because by then you've forgotten how. This is why ambition, left unchecked, is more dangerous than failure. Failure can force you to reflect. Escapist ambition removes all the natural checkpoints that might make you question your path. And so the cycle continues, applauded by society, driven by fear, numbed by busyness, emptied by success, until one day something breaks, quietly or catastrophically. That breaking point is where rebellion becomes possible. But it requires an act of courage most people never attempt: the courage to stop running. The question is, when you stop, what will you find waiting for you? Stopping sounds simple. In truth, it is one of the most violent acts you will ever commit against the life you've built. Because when you stop chasing, you're not just halting a career trajectory or postponing a project. You are confronting the machinery of identity that has kept you moving for years. Kierkegaard believed that true selfhood begins the moment you face your despair without disguise. That means stripping ambition of its armor and seeing it for what it has become. A distraction from the deeper question of who am I when there's nothing left to chase. The rebellion begins in the smallest of acts, deliberate stillness. You sit in a quiet room without a plan, no next step, no productivity hack, just silence. At first it feels unbearable, like withdrawal. Your mind claws for the next goal to latch onto. You feel the itch to get back to work. This is the craving of escapist ambition. The discomfort it has been shielding you from is finally surfacing. This is where many turn back. But those who push through discover something unsettling. Beneath the noise of endless striving, there is a raw, unfiltered self. One that doesn't care how impressive your resume is. One that only wants truth. Counterintuitively, breaking free doesn't mean destroying ambition. It means turning it inward. Instead of chasing the external markers of success, you direct that same relentless drive towards self-examination, mastery of your craft without audience, and alignment between your values and your actions. History is filled with people who did this. Leo Tolstoy abandoned the life of aristocratic indulgence to live more simply and write with moral urgency. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while keeping his Stoic journal, a constant act of turning ambition toward the inner life. Even Kierkegaard himself rejected the comfortable career path laid before him, choosing instead to write works that would make him misunderstood in his own time, but transformative to generations after. To reclaim ambition from escapism, you must dismantle the illusions that fuel it. Illusion 1, I am my achievements. No, you are the consciousness that creates them, not the sum of your trophies. Illusion 2, more is always better. More without meaning is just noise. Illusion 3, I'll rest when I'm done. The work will never be done. Rest must be chosen. Practically, this rebellion can be ritualized. Audit your motives. Before pursuing a goal, ask, am I moving towards something I value or away from something I fear? Reintroduce aimless time. Activities done without purpose, walking, painting, reading, train you to exist without the drug of progress. Limit external validation. Reduce the feedback loops that tie your worth to applause, social media metrics, constant networking, performative grind culture. And perhaps most importantly, find spaces where your worth is not tied to your output. This might mean relationships where you are loved in failure, or creative spaces where no one is watching. These are the antidotes to a life consumed by ambition's escape. You will not get applause for this rebellion. In fact, some will think you've lost your edge. But in trading the frantic chase for a slower, more deliberate stride, you reclaim something ambition could never give you: the ability to inhabit your own life fully. Because when ambition is no longer a hiding place, it can finally become what it was meant to be. Not a flight from yourself, but an expression of who you truly are. The cost of this transformation, everything false you've built; the reward, everything real you've forgotten. And from here, the path leads to the deepest truth of all, a truth Kierkegaard hinted at, but few ever dare to live. There comes a moment when the chase ends, not because you've reached the summit, but because you finally see the mountain for what it is. And in that moment, an uncomfortable truth unfolds. You were never running towards something. You were always running away. Kierkegaard would call this the sickness unto death, not a physical illness, but the despair of living out of alignment with your true self. All along, ambition had been a clever disguise, a mask so convincing that even you believed it. But now, without the noise of constant striving, you stand face to face with the truth. The thing you were trying to escape was not failure, obscurity, or mediocrity. It was yourself. This is the paradox. Ambition promises self-creation, but escapist ambition is self-erasure. It replaces the terrifying freedom of becoming with the comforting imprisonment of chasing. And as long as you run, you don't have to decide who you truly are. But here is the final, most radical realization. There is nothing inherently wrong with ambition. The problem is not the fire, it's what you're burning to keep it alive. If your goals serve as a substitute for self-confrontation, they will consume you. If your goals emerge from self-knowledge, they will illuminate you. The shift is subtle but seismic. You stop asking, what will make me look successful, and begin asking, what would I choose if no one was watching? This is Kierkegaard's leap into authenticity, a surrender not to passivity, but to truth. Nietzsche might frame it differently. Live so that if you had to repeat this exact life for eternity, you would do so willingly. If your ambition passes that test, it is no longer an escape. It is an embodiment of your essence. This realization will dismantle illusions you've carried for decades. You will see that some of your proudest achievements were nothing more than elegant avoidance. You will also see that some of your quietest, most uncelebrated moments were your truest victories. From this vantage point, you no longer measure ambition in size or visibility. You measure it in alignment. The ambitious pursuit of becoming deeply human is harder, slower, and infinitely more demanding than the pursuit of titles and trophies, but it is also the only race worth running. And here's the final sting. You may lose much of what you once thought you wanted. You may step away from opportunities that make no sense to others. You may stop chasing recognition, and in doing so, become invisible to the world you once tried so hard to impress. But invisibility in the eyes of the herd is the price of being visible to yourself. This is the freedom Kierkegaard spoke of, the freedom to stand alone in truth, even if it costs you the applause. To live without needing the chase as your hiding place. To replace the question, am I ahead, with, am I real? And once you have tasted that freedom, there is no going back. The machinery of escapist ambition may still whisper to you, but you will recognize it now. You will see its chains for what they are. You will no longer run to avoid the stillness. You will choose the stillness, and from it, you will decide when and why to run. Because ambition, purified by truth, is not about escaping life, it is about finally living it. Picture this. The world has gone quiet. There is no clock ticking in your ear, no deadline creeping closer, no ladder waiting to be climbed. Just you, standing in the open air, breathing without urgency. You realize something strange. Life has not stopped simply because you stopped running. The sun still rises, the earth still turns. And for the first time, you feel the ground beneath your feet instead of the road rushing past them. Kierkegaard warned that the greatest tragedy is not to lose life, but to live it in a way that is not truly yours. Now you understand. The endless pursuit was never the point. It was the hiding place. And the cost of staying there was too high. Your presence, your joy, your truth. Perhaps ambition will still call to you. Perhaps you will still chase certain dreams. But now, they will be chosen from a place of alignment, not fear. You will no longer build monuments to impress the crowd. You will build them to mark the territory of your own soul. And maybe, just maybe, that is the rarest form of ambition in the modern world, the courage to live without running away. So the question remains, will you keep sprinting toward the illusion of more, or will you stop, turn around, and finally walk toward yourself? The answer will decide not just what you achieve, but whether you ever truly lived. If this spoke to you, don't let it fade into another passing thought. Take one step today, one honest, uncomfortable step toward ambition that's rooted in truth, not escape. And if you want more conversations like this, where philosophy meets the raw reality of the human mind, subscribe. The next idea we explore, might just change the way you live the rest of your life.